My answer to you is going to be no, but I want to give you these five tips that, looking back when I first started competing, I think would have been extremely helpful to know. And I've reverse engineered this. If you're new here, my name is Damian. Welcome to White Belt Goons. I am a 3-stripe white belt who trains at Team Quest in Gresham. And this channel is all about helping to motivate and give advice and feedback from my own personal BJJ journey for guys over the age of 40 who are starting as older grapplers. So one of the first things that I tell people is my advice is to start competing as close to your official start date when you first start Jiu-Jitsu as humanly possible. And here's why. You don't know what you don't know. And I really feel that when I look back at my first competition, it was like 2 months after I had started Jiu-Jitsu, right? And when I went into that competition, I had no understanding or idea about any aspect of the competitive arena. I had never competed in Jiu-Jitsu before. I really had never, done Jiu-Jitsu seriously before. So going into this competition, I didn't know what to expect. I had no understanding of the nerves. I had no understanding of the adrenaline dump. And I had no understanding of certain aspects of competing that I should be afraid of. And that's actually a good thing. I think if I would have waited until that 6-month mark or that first year mark, I would have had paralysis by analysis. I would have been thinking about my game. I would have been thinking about the game plan. I would have been thinking about my opponent. And when I went in after that second month of starting Jiu-Jitsu, I didn't have any of that. It was basically just reckless abandon. My thought process was, let's just go out there, let's have fun, let's see what happens. And to be honest, looking back at that first competition was probably the most free that I've ever competed. And I really feel that that was of great benefit. So the number one piece of advice would be to compete early. Just get out there and get your feet wet. It's not about winning, it's about experience. And you need to experience all of the things that surround competition. Taking that day off from work, burning that PTO, driving to the competition, dealing with the nerves if there are any, understanding the rule set, understanding what it's like to actually be in a competition setting versus being in your training setting, because believe me, they are 180 degrees different. All of this so important, but the more time you put in between starting Jiu-Jitsu and actually doing your competition, the more time you have to build up this monster that truly isn't there. And remember, as a beginner, we don't need more stress. If anything, we need to alleviate the stress. And I really feel that getting out there and competing extremely early in your experience is vital. And not only is it vital, it's absolutely beneficial to your development if you're going to do this, even as a hobbyist moving into your second and third year. Another tip that I give people who are contemplating competing is to train at open mat. So most schools will have a open mat format at least 1 or 2 days a week. And this is going to be where you're basically on a 5-minute timer and you're able to roll with other people. The great thing about open mats is that you can pretty much pick who you roll with. You can train with younger, smaller, even female grapplers. You can train with people who are at your level or people who are well above your level. And for the most part, it's a great opportunity for you to get out and feel what it's like to be in this competitive environment. The difference between open mat and classes is going to be the structure. Your classes are going to be very controlled, they're going to be very deliberate, and they're going to focus on specific techniques. For you to get ready for a competition or even understand what it feels like to be in that competition setting, going to open mats is probably the closest thing that you'll get to that, because it's more of a sparring situation. And again, you're working on a timer, you're working with another grappler who is, either at your level, below your level, or above your level, and it gives you different looks, and it really gives you an opportunity to see what it feels like to be under that pressure, to be on that clock, and to work in multiple rounds where you're fatigued, you're gassed out, maybe your forearms are blown out. All of these things are so important to your development. Kind of piggybacking off of that is going to be number 3, which I think is so important, and that is going to open mats outside of your gym. Yes, even if you train at your home gym, there are other gyms within your city, within your area that are going to also offer open mats to people from other schools. Take advantage of this. The great thing about this is that you're going into an environment where you're training with people who don't know your game. You have to remember, everybody in your academy, you guys are all moving not at the same pace, but on the same highway. So as you develop and as you get better, the people that you roll with are going to be more in tune with your game, in tune with your style of jiu-jitsu, your strengths, your weaknesses. And when you go to these open mats outside of your gym, you're encountering people who for the most part don't train with you and don't really know what you're going to bring to the mat. That is the most legitimate simulation of what you're going to find when you go to these competitions. I can't stress enough how important it is for you to go to other gyms, to go to other schools and experience that open mat situation. It's so imperative to your development as a competitive grappler, and it really does simulate a lot of what that day is going to be like. You're traveling to an unknown location or a location that's not your normal location. You're rolling with someone who, for the most part, you've never had any interaction with. These people don't know your game. They don't know your strengths. They don't know your weaknesses. And so you're getting a real look at what it's like to be in that situation. And if you pick the right training partners, you can really get a good look and a good experience for you before you go to that competition for the first time. The fourth thing, and I think this is way often overlooked, it's going to be private lessons. You can train with a purple belt, a brown belt, or any of the black belts that are in your school if you have the opportunity to take private instruction. The great thing about private instruction before you compete, you can actually develop an understanding or a game plan of what's best for you. You can take all of these techniques that you're learning and that you're being taught, and you can whittle it down to the 3, 4, or 5 things that best suit you based on your weight, based on your size, based on your flexibility, based on your ability, based on whether you're passive or aggressive. The great thing about private instruction is that all of the information that you're taking in and that you're potentially retaining from classes, you can work with a qualified instructor and say, hey, how can we take all of this information and streamline it into one path for me to be as successful as possible on this competition day? I know a lot of times people don't have the extra income to purchase private lessons. Not a problem. You can find people in your school who are more than willing to work with you before class or after class. And even if you're just getting in things like, mount escapes or coming out of side control or working from disadvantageous positions, it's going to be better than nothing. And in my opinion, it's absolutely invaluable. Number 5 is also extremely important, and it's accepting reality. Listen, we're not in our 20s, we're not in our 30s, and if you're like me, I'm damn near out of my 40s. Can you deal with the reality? Can you deal with the situation if your hand doesn't get raised? And I want to say this again. Can you deal with the situation if your hand doesn't get raised at this competition? Can you handle how your wife or your children or your girlfriend potentially look at you on the drive home if you were to lose or potentially get injured? And guys, listen, these are all realities of competitive sports. Most of us, we did something in high school or middle school. Maybe you played football or basketball or baseball. Some of you guys even wrestled. Some of you might have actually done jiu-jitsu in your 20s. But regardless of what you feel in your mind and what you feel in your heart, your body is not going to operate the way that you think it will in this first competition. And a lot of guys allow this reality to keep them from competing ever again down the road. It's so important that if you decide to do this, that you're comfortable with whatever the outcome is. It's not about winning. I know I am as competitive as anybody else out there, and I have to tell myself this over and over and over again. But the important thing about competition for BJJ is that it's all data collection. You're collecting data on whether or not the way that you're training is efficient. You're collecting data on whether or not you've gotten in better shape or created a better gas tank for this. You're gathering data on whether or not the game plan that you took into this competition was sufficient to deal with the people that were across from you on that day. It's only data. It's not life and death, and it doesn't mean the world. But if you can't accept whatever the result is, maybe this isn't for you, because it truly is disappointing and difficult for people that find their entire identity through jiu-jitsu. You have to be able to separate that, and operate from a position of maturity if you go to this competition and the results aren't what you want them to be. But that's just my opinion, and this is just my experience. I would love to know what you guys think. Are you a new competitive grappler over the age of 40 wearing that white belt? Or are you a grappler who's been doing this for a couple of years? Maybe you got a little bit of color on your belt. Let me know what you think. Do you think that new grapplers over the age of 40 should enter into BJJ competitions, or should they wait? I would love to know what you guys think. And as always, I appreciate you being here, and be great. Take care.